Welcome to the Mama Needs a Moment podcast. We are your hosts, Chrissy
and Cindy,
co-founders of Her Health Collective.
We are two moms obsessed with changing the way moms take care of themselves. We're so glad you're here. Let's dive in. We are honored to introduce Avni Panchal to all of you. Avni is a licensed clinical social worker who has worked in mental health as a social worker, therapist, trainer, and coach. As an empowerment coach, Avni specializes in assisting South Asians and other individuals who find themselves navigating multiple cultures. Her mission is to help people overcome the feeling of being an imposter in both their personal and professional lives. Avni wants to support people in breaking free from the limitations that prevent them from reaching their true potential. Hi, Avni. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm really excited to chat with y'all.
Yes, we're very excited to have this conversation. And I am very excited to ask you a completely random, fun question that none of us know what it's going to be. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh boy.
I know, the pressure is on. So just pick a number 1 to 10 for me.
9.
I like that number. That's my birthday number. So
that's my birthday number too.
Oh, what month?
October.
Oh, okay. I'm December.
Oh, okay.
Still a good day. Still a good day.
Yeah.
Okay. 9. Ooh. Do you think there should be a salary cap for actors in movies?
Oh, that is a random question. I would say no, because I don't necessarily know like what it would entail in terms of the projects that people are acting and how much it takes. Like, how do you quantify, okay, this is the limit where you no longer can earn past this? In me being someone that is trying to push my limiting beliefs, I was like, no cap, like, let's just see how far you can take it. So my instinct says no, there shouldn't be. What I will say is I hope the gender gap gets more shorter and equal and equitable. So if there is no salary cap, I hope that's true for the women and gender non-binary and everybody in between.
Yeah, and across race too. I'm actually reading Cicely Tyson's memoir, and it's fascinating. And I also finished Viola Davis's memoir, and they both really go into the gap in pay for Black versus white actors and actresses, and it's pretty stark. So that's a very great point in seeing some equality there. Well, thank you for your insight on this very random question.
I loved your answer. I thought it was very inclusive. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. And how can we have an opinion over something that we've never experienced, right? So I loved that answer. In the beginning, where I was introducing you, I had mentioned that you specialize in assisting South Asians and other individuals. And that's mainly because you're an immigrant from South Asia, and you are particularly open about the external pressures that the youth in your culture face in becoming a professional in either the engineering or the medical fields. You are also open about the internal struggle that you personally faced when you had to choose between fulfilling your father's dream of having a child in the medical field and following your own path of finding a profession that, quote, made me curious and sparked my interest.
Yeah.
This is a dilemma many youth face, following the quote unquote assumed path versus the heart directed path. Bringing focus to this has been a big part of your mission. Will you provide more background information on this and share the cultural differences between the South Asian culture and American culture when it comes to the professional demands?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to also say, like, it took me a long time to even niche down to say I am serving my community because of my own stuff around being from two cultures. So it took me a long time to say, no, this is the community that I want to serve. I'm part of this community, because I was sort of navigating my own identity stuff of like, am I American? Am I Indian? And what does that look like? So I just want to name that as well because I didn't start here. I definitely am here 15 years in my career, but this was definitely a journey to niche down to what I identify as, which is sounding hilarious today. But yes, that was definitely something that I had to come to terms with. But yeah, there's so many things in your question that you brought up on the pressures around culture and engineering or doctor. And so my dad was a doctor in India. He didn't get to practice it here. We moved here when I was 13. And so he never got to like use his license and, go through the medical exam. And so he had to completely change his profession and become a business owner. He bought this very small motel in San Luis Obispo where I grew up and total change of profession. So I think I, growing up, kind of felt this like I want to become a doctor for him and want to make sure that I give back. I don't think he was putting that pressure on me more so than like me putting that pressure on me. But even just the notion of, when you're in high school and a senior and you're picking out majors, like the assumption was like, are you going in medical or are you going in science? And so that was just sort of assumed. And I think I was privileged enough where I didn't know what I wanted to do very clearly versus what I did want to do. So I knew I wasn't realistically when I got down to it, it's like I can't really handle blood. It doesn't work.
Right.
Like I don't think I'm going to be able to be in the medical field. Like I can't even handle blood. I can't see someone getting an injection. I'm terrified of an injection. So I knew that wasn't going to happen. I knew the chemistry or the physics piece wasn't going to happen. So it was more like I know what I don't want to do. And I had taken a psychology class in ninth grade, and I was like, well, I'm going to give that a try. And I got really lucky that it really fit well. Like, I remember sitting in my first year, first quarter, it was a quarter system. I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, their quarter system, and they're very big on learn by doing. So you start taking your major classes from the very beginning. And so I was in my Psych 101 class, first quarter, first year, and I loved it. I really loved it. And so it kind of just made me think of what's further. Okay, now I got to get my master's and, move forward. So I got lucky in this profession, I like to say. I know today why it's a good fit because I am a mediator in my family. I am the person that people come and talk to. I didn't know that back then as an 18-year-old that I was, a social worker or a mental health professional, but I know that today because it definitely is a very good fit. So for someone who's struggling to like the heart and the head piece, really follow. I know it sounds really cliche, but try to follow what seems natural to you because you will understand years later why that was such a good fit. But in the moment, if you could simply follow, like, okay, I'm going to just try this major. Okay, now it requires me to study further. So I'm going to move further. And my career kind of went through those step by step, but I couldn't have told you as an 18-year-old that I was going to do what I'm doing today. It was simply a series of events that I kept following through. So I am very big on telling people that, yes, some people can find their passion and know exactly what they want to do and others might do the step-by-step process that I did and it still works out.
I'm laughing over here, smiling. So is Chrissy, because we relate very much to what you're saying. So first of all, I switched my major a lot. I didn't know what to do, but I settled on psychology. So my major was psychology. And then Chrissy taught psychology
Oh.
for high school kids. So we see you. Thank you for what you do. And I also very much understand the pressure that you felt from the societal pressure, even if you weren't feeling it as much from your family.
Mhm.
But what I'm really interested in is how did you personally find the strength to go against what was expected of you, even though you had minimal support from others? And maybe you can explain that as well, like what you mean by minimal support, your family, or was it because you had immigrated into the United States and your family was still overseas?
So I actually moved with my nuclear family. So my parents and my brothers and sisters, we all moved together. And I know that's a privilege in and of itself because, there are many people who immigrate by themselves and their family is back home. So I was privileged enough to be with my family here. In terms of that pressure or that piece that you're bringing up, my parents never necessarily said don't do it, but what was funny is my dad, the one class he did not like in his medical school was psychology. And then I come, I'm like, I'm going to do psychology. And he's like,
Oh,
okay, great. That's awesome. But he never overtly, him or my mom never overtly said, you can't necessarily do it. I think both of their stances, if you're going to do something, do it well. And so, really understand it, take it as far as it needs to go and do it well. So I appreciated that. And even in that piece, I saw the subtle differences in like when family comes over and, most parents will sort of introduce like, oh, my kid is doing this. And I sort of saw like I was the one sort of sharing more like, oh, yeah, I'm studying psychology because I really think my parents for a long time didn't understand what I was doing. But
right.
I remember seeing that change when I got into my graduate program at UC Berkeley. Then it's like, oh, you're in UC Berkeley. Everything's like now I'm going to totally promote you. So I definitely saw that shift. But I am very privileged in the sense that I didn't feel that from my parents directly, which I know for a lot of people, when you do have your closest people not supporting you, that pressure and that self-doubt is even more because you're experiencing it on a day-to-day level. You're kind of judging and figuring, am I doing the right thing? You're already feeling that. And now if you're feeling that from your parents, I feel like it's really, really exaggerated. I do feel like even though my parents didn't understand what I was doing, they weren't necessarily overtly saying, what are you doing? And what is wrong with you kind of thing, which I think adds a very big layer of self-doubt. So I think that helped. But I also heard, many people like, well, why are you doing that? Because you got, really good grades. And why did you pick this major? And what are you really going to do? Is it even going to pay you money? And are you going to be successful? I'm very big, and this is something that I do with my clients as well, to write down your why, because that's your North Star. And so back then, I didn't necessarily do it this overtly, but I was, like I said, I was very clear on what I didn't want to do versus what I did want to do. So when those doubts came in, I would sort of look at the curiosity that psychology provided me or the interest that I had in understanding why humans make the decisions that they make. Like that really drove me. It really lights me up even today. And so I think it helped when that self-doubt came to remind myself of the interest and the instinct that I was feeling from my career and the profession that I had picked, and sort of trusting that it's going to take me where I need to go, even with the self-doubt that is coming. And then what I will also say to a lot of people that are experiencing that self-doubt is when you are successful, whatever success looks like to you, please understand the people that were doubting you will come back and say, I knew you were going to do that. I am so grateful you did that. We always were going to support you. And so understand that, those individuals are going to then judge you for not doing it sooner. So you're not really going to win either way. And so really sort of understanding, if I'm feeling good about something, that's my compass. If it's feeling good, I'm going to keep moving forward. And I think that's what I've done with my decisions. Like when I realized, oh, okay, bachelor's in psychology doesn't get you much. I got to get my master's. So then I went for social work. I interviewed a bunch of people in counseling and marriage and family therapy. I realized social work gave me more options. So it's like, okay, I'm going to go get my master's in social work. And then I realized I wanted to work with kids. So then I worked with children and families. So there was all this different steps that I took because I was sort of following, oh, this feels good. Oh, I'm curious about it. I'm going to keep taking that step. And a lot of us don't listen to our instinct as much as we'd like to. So that would be my piece to share is if something keeps coming back to you as an interest and you keep coming back to it, even if you've pushed it down, even if you've said, no, that's not it, take that as an indicator because that's trying to tell you something.
So valuable. Many of the things that you said when you were just speaking were very valuable. One, the pressure of labels that we have. I can only speak from the American culture, but you've also mentioned that you had it over in the Indian culture as well, the pressure to succeed. So going against that is often difficult. And I loved all that you had talked about with listening to that North Star and finding your North Star and your why. I find it's hard to lean on the intuition. Sometimes I'm like, just speak louder to me. So I appreciate you sharing all of that valuable information. As a side note, do you feel like your intuition speaks loudly to you?
This episode is sponsored by Her Circle, the supportive and welcoming community for moms created by Her Health Collective.
Her Circle is a welcoming and supportive community for moms who are passionate about making change for themselves, their families, the community, and the world. Together, this village of women are revolutionizing the way moms take care of themselves.
From an active, private online community and the incredible daily chats hosted there, to our many gatherings, including support groups, Moms Night Out, volunteer opportunities, book club, family adventures, coffee chats, and so much more. We love providing moms the chance to connect and create authentic relationships with one another.
The network of experts in Her Circle are a phenomenal resource and provide great learning experiences for moms on topics ranging from women's health to parenting. We cover the issues that matter to moms the most, from virtual expert Q&As to one-on-one wellness minute consultations and support groups. We are committed to getting moms in front of the information, experts, and support they need most.
To learn more about Her Circle, head to www.herhealthcollective.com. We have a limited number of spaces and the doors only open a few times a year. So be sure to add your name to the no obligation waitlist so you are the first to know when the doors officially reopen.
Not always. Not always. Because sometimes the self-doubt is really taking a seat, has a little bonfire going, and it's taken blankets and everything, it's settled in. And so sometimes in that moment, I can't necessarily hear it right away. But like I said, the pattern piece of it. So if I hear it again and again and again, then I'm like, okay, you were here the fifth time. Now I need to pay attention. But I don't want to make it seem like I'm perfect in that any way, shape, or form, because yeah, not always. I don't hear it often. So even with my private practice, for example, my partner had been telling me for 3 years ago to start that. And I didn't necessarily start it until 3 years later because I wasn't ready to do it. And so not always.
But sometimes timing needs to align
Yes.
and, there's so many factors that come into it. So maybe 3 years ago, it wasn't the right time for you, even though your partner saw it and you just had to arrive there in your own time. And, I think that listening to our intuition is often it's a skill set. It's something that if we practice it and we're in tune with our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions, then we gradually can become more adept at finding it. But it's still not something that's always there because the timing has to be right and so many
Yeah.
other factors. It's so important. Thank you so much for sharing that.
No.
On your website, you state, quote, I understand the unique challenges and experiences that arise from straddling different worlds. As an empowerment coach, I specialize in assisting South Asians and other individuals who find themselves navigating multiple cultures.
Mhm.
You go on to discuss your desire to destigmatize and decolonize the way mental health is perceived. We agree 100%. This is personally one of my biggest passions. And we very much know that mental health carries so many stigmas that need to be dismantled. As a society, we have made strides to rectify this. However, there is without a doubt much more that still needs to be done. Would you look at this from your multicultural lens? Do you feel that the stigmas attached to mental health are dissolving in some cultures faster than others?
Yes and no. I think it for the Western culture, I do think there is more openness to mental health. And I think it depends on the pockets that you're living in, because I can imagine me being in California looks very different than someone living in, Midwestern state or a Southern state where there is still some conservativeness in whether emotions are expressed or not. And I know that's a gross generalization, but I think even in the United States, it depends on where you are and what access you have to mental health. Having said that, I do know for South Asian culture or for other cultures as well, especially as a person of color, there is a stigma where there's this notion of asking for help is means something is wrong with you or that you're weak, or if you're having something that you're navigating mental health related, that means there's something that is going on for you that's not okay. And I don't necessarily want to use the words crazy, but I know that's something that can also be utilized or sort of said in a crass way to individuals. So I know that that is there, and it's unfortunate because the stigma then makes it harder for people to talk about what they're going through. And my whole mission is to sort of destigmatize it. So simply by even me naming that I have my own self-doubts. And, when I'm seen as an expert and a professional, to sort of shed that curtain and the facade almost to kind of show my own humanity so that people can see their own. I think that's really where I want to take the conversation. What I'm also noticing in many cultures, including mine, is the younger generation is a lot more open to talking about mental health, a lot more open to talking about mental health. A lot of my clients who are then in their 20s and 30s are realizing this is what they want to invest in for their well-being. They want to understand themselves better. And I'm hoping that that then passes to the other generations, the older generations as well. But it is exciting to see that the younger generation is like ready and willing and wanting to have those conversations. And I've seen that across the board in many different cultures. So that piece really excites me. And then my hope is that we really start seeing that we all have something going on. It's just to what degree, right? Like so many of us are navigating our own baggage. And the hope is that we can kind of see we all got baggage, and we can start talking about it. Because the term mental health makes it feel like, oh, it has to be a diagnosis or something that's wrong with you, but it could be something simple as, how are you doing? I'm noticing you're really stressed. And you just had a conversation on mental health. Maybe that's not what you said in terms of the title or the word of it, but that was a conversation on your mental health and well-being. So I want to sort of normalize it the same way that you talk about physical health. And I know many companies are trying to do that. Our culture, especially after the pandemic, has realized how big mental health is. And there's so much funding that's hopefully being put there. So I'm hoping that this tide that we're feeling in mental health continues, because it really allows to sort of destigmatize this notion that it's a few pockets of people, when I can tell you in my 15 years of practice with seeing as many people as I've done, everybody's got something. It just depends on the degree.
Oh, absolutely. I love your focus on the humanity of it and the power of sharing our stories. That's something we've seen so much within Her Health Collective, the power of sharing our stories and how that can be healing both for the person sharing and the people receiving the story. As you were talking, I found myself thinking about social media
Mhm.
in a positive way. And I rail against social media a lot. It's the bane of my existence, and I really struggle with it, and it consumes me sometimes, and all of these things. But as you were talking, particularly about experts and professionals and allowing others to see the humanity behind that professional hat, that is what I think is something that's beautiful that has come from social media, is allowing us to kind of see that more personal side of these people that we put a doctor up on a pedestal or a celebrity up on a pedestal who you very kindly will not cap their salary of. But I mean, these are really powerful things to be able to see that. So I found myself thinking about social media positively, which I haven't in a while. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And I think there are so many ways that we can use technology for our benefit. Like, I can't tell you countless times where I felt the self-doubt, and I've just put that on the internet search of what happens when you're feeling that nothing's working out. And then I've seen so many countless blogs, videos that are inspiring, and that can be a moment to shift my thinking in a different direction.
We speak to a lot of moms. Her Health Collective, that's what we do. We connect moms to experts, and we have a community for moms. Chrissy and I are both moms, so we can speak firsthand about how moms are extremely harsh critics of themselves. You work with clients on challenging their limiting beliefs and recognizing that their critical thinking may be keeping them stuck. And I can speak firsthand with that. It does keep me stuck because I have a lot of critical thinking of myself. You actually wrote an article for Medium that was
Mhm.
titled Three Ways for BIPOC Individuals to Combat Self Doubt and Recognize Our Worth. In the article, you discuss self doubt and imposter syndrome from the perspective of a professional. However, moms experience this not only professionally, but also from the demands of motherhood. We are so curious to get your feedback on this. What are ways that we can combat self doubt as moms, limiting beliefs, our own criticism, and recognizing our worth when there is so much pressure on moms professionally, personally, culturally, socially? I mean, I could go on. Can you talk us through this a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. And so much there that, to your point on the self-criticism and the pressure, and professionally and personally and culturally, there's so much there. There's so much responsibility that moms hold in carrying their child, making sure they're a role model to them, ensuring the family's intact. Like, you're sort of wearing so many different hats, like multiple different hats, and so often not necessarily acknowledged for the work that you're doing, and so often not necessarily acknowledged for the bind and the glue that you really are in that identity. And so often, even how much of that identity comes front and center, and then other parts of your identity sometimes are missed. Like, when I remember seeing my sister pregnant recently, and she has a beautiful, my niece is amazing. She's 5 months, she's beautiful. And I remember my sister sort of going through, like, can someone ask me besides my daughter what's going on with me? Like, can I be also asked about other parts of my identity? And at the same time, I can see her just immersed in wanting to be better, do better, and that protective piece that comes for parents that is so incredibly real. So, what I will say first for moms is, you're doing the best you can. I can't stress that enough. You're doing the best you can, and really sort of understanding that this desire that you have in wanting to do better and wanting to protect your children, like, that's your mom natural instinct. Like, that is the mama bear instinct you are going to have. It's the knee-jerk reaction. And so I hope that moms can understand on a very deeper level, they are there to nurture and protect their child, but that love also has to be poured into themselves before they can pour it to their children. I think oftentimes, as women, I would even speak for women, like, we are so often in so many cultures taught to be caregivers from such a young age that it is very natural for us to take care of everybody else but ourselves. Very, very natural. I have done that since I was 6 because I'm the eldest of 4. And I know how to care for my siblings because I'm kind of like a second mom to them. I know how to do that since I was 6 years old. So 3 decades of my life, I know exactly how to take care of other people over me. And so I really hope that moms can understand how much benefit they have in pouring into themselves that supports their children. And it feels selfish because our cultures make it feel like it's selfish to take care of themselves. It feels selfish to take that minute because you're like, I'm at the brink of, I'm about to get frustrated and angry and I need a minute, but not feeling like you can take that minute. And so I really hope you can understand that in the long run, you serve yourself in pouring into you because you're modeling for your child in the long run. If we really want to teach our kids self-care and the ability to have that resilience, we also have to model that for them. And the way we model that is by taking care of ourselves, which feels very counterintuitive. But I really hope that when that self-doubt comes in, that you can think of that long-term view of, in me saying no to something that I didn't really want to do, in me speaking up more, in me voicing what I need, I'm actually showing my child that that is how I want them to also be, raised and brought up.
And the article that you had written for Medium, you had different tips in there.
Mhm.
Can you take us back to that article
Yeah.
and think about those tips and let us know, can they also be applied in this particular scenario where moms are using self-criticism, they're using limiting beliefs, they might doubt their self-worth and what they're giving. Can you share a little bit of that article and the points that you had made in that article?
So, yes, I did write an article for Medium. It's something that I've been wanting to do. And so, Medium's an online platform, subscription-based platform where you as a writer can, write and have newsletters and blogs. And so, I've written a couple articles. I'm trying to do more. I wrote on, the self-doubt that comes as a BIPOC individual in the professional sphere. And so, I had written the article more from that stance of, I joined this new network of therapists and I don't feel like I can speak up, and no one said that I can't speak up. So that was really the context of it. But in there, I sort of mentioned three different ways that you can sort of navigate your self-doubt. So the first one being you can be humble and sincere in what you bring to the table. And I was sort of talking about it from a professional piece of, you can have humility in understanding that you don't know everything. And at the same time, we want to kind of credit where we have the skills and not sort of undermine that. So to bring that analogy back to moms, you can be humble in knowing that you're not going to know every single thing about parenting and every single thing about your child's development. And you can also acknowledge that you may know a lot more about your child than you give yourself credit, and a lot more than other people who are going to say, oh, you did that for your child. And are you sure that's what you want to do? And so, even sort of, the judgment or criticism that comes from other people is kind of holding sort of a balance scale, if you will, on I can have humility because I'm not going to know everything, but I also do want to fill my cup up and realizing I know a lot more than I give myself credit and what my brain is telling me right now. So I definitely think that analogy can help. And then the second point that I had made there was recognizing that you have a seat at the table, and it's not necessarily because of any of the identity markers, like you being a woman or a man or an LGBTQ individual or a person of color, or you're old or young or disabled. Because oftentimes I find, especially for people of color, there's this sort of like, am I your checkbox diversity staff that got hired? And is that why I'm here? And so sometimes that may be a reason that people don't speak up. And so that analogy can still apply to moms in the sense that you may be in rooms where there are moms who have more experience and more children, and you have grandparents that are coming up to see, well, we know exactly how to do this, and you may have other people sort of sharing what it means for motherhood, and then feeling like, oh, I'm not doing enough, or the person who is a stay-at-home parent and has all, you know, a lot more time than you may as you're balancing your career. So in that sense, in the analogy of sort of recognizing, regardless of where your journey is and what your identity is and what your experience is in terms of that motherhood, mom identity, you still have a seat at the table because you are also experiencing that lived experience in your own way, in your own journey, and it doesn't have to match anyone else's. So I really sort of want to preface it like, yes, absolutely. If you are a mom of color, this will be even more applicable. But even if you are not someone who is a mom of color, I think just recognizing that even if someone else has more experience than me, I still have a seat at the table because I am experiencing this. I am a mom. And then the last piece that I had said is your path is unique to you and doesn't necessarily need to follow anyone else. So you're exactly where you need to be. And it's almost like a reminder. Professionally, it was more realizing like I'm not from the tech world and I'm trying to dive there, but that doesn't mean that any of the experience that I had was invalid. And so, from a professional standpoint, that's the point I had made in the article. But from a mom standpoint, even for anyone who's on this journey, it's your journey. It's your journey to how you're going to make motherhood be unique to you. You're going to have your own lived experience. You're going to have your own unlearning from your own parenting and caregiving, where there'll be countless times where I want to make sure I'm not like my parents and then still realize I'm exactly like my parents in some ways and I didn't want to do that. And so I just want to sort of, you know, name that it is unique to you. It doesn't mean that it has to be perfect. And this notion of trusting that you're exactly where you need to be, I think oftentimes we forget that, especially with the inundated of kids and extracurricular activity and all the stuff that I want my kids to experience and the camps and everything else. We tend to sort of forget that we're exactly where we need to be, and this journey is going to pan out the way it needs to be. I think I hear so much from like, I want to make sure my child is protected and they're not going to be hurt or in pain. And I just want to say to moms, like, no child leaves childhood unscathed, regardless of the resources and regardless of how much love and care they get. And that is not to discourage anybody. It's more to realize we're all going to have our unlearning as adults that we're going to have to do. What is going to provide your children that tool is the love and consistency that you provide for your child. So if you are as consistent as you can be, if you are consistent in sharing and expressing your love, you're providing your kids the tools that they're going to need for their own journey to unlearn and learn the stuff that they need to do as adults.
Wonderful. That was so wonderful. Thank you very much for all of that. Is there anything that's going on with your business or behind the scenes that you wanted to share with our listeners, and how could they can find you, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a YouTube channel. I go by the Indian Counselor, and that is also the handle that I use for Instagram and TikTok. So please follow me on YouTube. I try to do as many mental health related videos, and I'm trying to be a little bit more consistent about it for sure. And then in terms of coaching, if anybody wants to work with me, the indiancounselor.com is the website they can reach out and work with me on. If you want therapy, because I do see individuals and couples for therapy, then strengthandselflove.com is my private practice link.
We're so grateful for you. Thank you for all that you do, all that you've shared.
Thank you so much.
We've enjoyed hanging out with you today, friend. We hope you got to finally enjoy a hot cup of coffee as you listened. Make sure you follow us so you're the first to know when we drop a new episode.
If you've enjoyed your time with us, let us know by leaving a review. We always love hearing from you. Until next time, stay true to you.